Thank you. As you've known, I've been here for 12 years and I am really learning a lot about these different resources and how they can really get into your family history more. And we're showing you ways to do it, and this is one of them. So manufacturing places have started in 1810, the schedules did, and finished in 1885 with the territory. But we're only going to discuss 1810 through 1880. So you ask your question, why would I want to research these? It tells a part of your ancestor's story, whether or not he's the owner and what business he may have owned, whether or not they worked for them, you know, as a carpenter, day laborer, or maybe a store clerk, or they could have been a customer. Also, it tells more about the town and county that they lived in, like the number of businesses that may be around, the types, the location. You might want to say if he was a farmer and all of a sudden you've got a blacksmith, you're wondering how far away is he if he has a problem with getting shoes for his horses and things like this, or maybe broke some equipment and needed it to be repaired. So you get an idea of where they might have had to travel to or work with, and it's a way to really make your family history story come alive. And that's what we really want to do to catch other family members to really kind of want to know more of what's going on in the background. And the recent magazine I had purchased, because it caught my eye with the title Agricultural and Industrial Schedules, tells you at the beginning it's a way to enrich your family research by using these types of schedules. So it was a good source, and I really enjoyed reading this article, and I'll show you a little bit of part of it later. Okay, the National Archive does a description of the 1820, 1850, and 1860 manufacturing schedules because the other ones were listed as industrial, but it gives you a little brief idea of what's on these schedules should you want to get some background information. It's nice to know what you should be looking for, so if you have questions, you can really dig in. And then Family Search WIKI tells you a little bit about the schedules and what schedules they have in their digitized catalog. And then Ancestry gives you a description also of these census records, and it's listed just below the screen where it says the federal census non-population, which you search through the card catalog and to locate this. And then recently I came across, when I was doing a research on the state censuses, a book called History and Growth of the U.S. Census. It gave me an idea of like the various history of a little bit of each of these, plus a schedule inquiries down here and Schedule A. And there's like several pages based on the information that they pulled from these schedules and other census records. It was really surprising what the Congress and federal government wanted to know about our ancestors. The data collected was mostly for businesses that made $500 or more. It named each business or business owner, the type of business, the capital they put into it, the quantity and value of their resources they used, the quantity of yearly production, the number of people they hired, and the average wages. So that was the basic part of it. And then in 1870, they added a distinction between child labor and adult labor. The industrial schedule years were 1810, 20, no 1830. Congress was upset with what was gathered in 1810, 1820. It was not really flowing well enough for them to do it, so they threw out 1830's chance. They just said population only. 1840, I didn't know this for a while until I started this research, but the 1840 has 2 pages, and on the second page, in a brief little column, are choices of like 6 or 7 businesses that they could mark, and you'll see that later. And then in 1880, they got really industrious. They divided the categories of the businesses into 12 of them. Some places used just a Schedule 3, which listed everybody on one sheet instead of going through the separate sheets. They didn't want to go back and forth searching for the ones they needed to use. So enumerators sometimes use Schedule 3, or they really followed the 12 categories. And again, they had to be $500 profit or more. Okay, the main businesses usually collected were manufacturing, mining, fishing for a while there, mercantile, commercial, and trading businesses. Okay, and then, no, that went back, okay. Then if you want blank forms for 1850 through 1880, you can get them off the National Archives site when you search for genealogy and you go in and you look for charts and forms. And so here are what some of the charts look like. So this was the 1840, 1850 and 60, 1870, and that's where they show you about the ages of the children, whether or not females employees were 13 years and above, and then the males 16 and older. And then 1880, again, the number of hands employed, and they made sure that they found out how many of them were child laborers. So there's a lot of nice information there. It's how much they made, either by an hour or by a day. Okay, so this is the territorial 1885 one. Okay. Okay, and some of them they asked about what kind of power they used. Oh. Okay. So the industrial census, we're going to start with 1810. The actual census has been lost, but they had a lot of annotations on the population census. And then there's a list of state and counties that can be found in a descriptive pamphlet out on archives, the National Archives. And it's quite interesting because they lost a lot of some of it, but this is some basic information that they had gathered. And so in the far right corner, you're going to see the information that they listed. And so right here is you've got like a sawmill, there's saddles, and there's like other ones like a mill, like a saw and grist mill. And then 2 shoemakers are on there that I can read off there. It's hard to read them, but you get an idea. And it's right next to the head of households listing. And then New York State, I recently discovered this through that one article, that they have their 1810 on microfilm. And so the film number is at the bottom of the schedule. It also tells you, I just searched New York, just the state of New York, and the place part in the catalog of Family Search, and it came up, click census, and this is what I got. And so for the state of New York, Niagara County is telling you it's pages 250 through 276. And then they list the schedule. But as you notice, it's all handwriting columns and everything else. They had a choice of print forms, or they did them in handwriting. Sometimes you get small forms, sometimes you get large. This is the regular population. The non-population part is the bottom half that writes all the way across the columns. And so it's right here, it says manufacturing established, and then it lists the various companies. And then there were reports done. I found these out on the internet when I did some searching. I think part of it was on the Census webpage, the US Census. But this one, it was in Internet Archives, and it's 302 pages. It's by states, no individual names. So you go know by states and county what was done during the 1810. So you get an idea if you knew your ancestor did this certain occupation, you get an idea of how many people or how much business was done in the area. You kind of wonder how much he was involved in too. So you get an idea of like, let's search some more. And so here are some tables that are talking about, you know, doing bells, blacksmith, book barring, agents for manufacturers, arts, fine, and science. So there's all kinds of different categories. It was an interesting book. And here is some more, and it shows you the various states. Michigan was out of territory at this point in time, and so was Indiana. So it's interesting to see what the Great Lakes did. Here it's Indiana territory with cotton goods, cotton manufacturing, cotton mixed goods, flaxen cloth. So it was kind of interesting to know that they even involved cotton here in Indiana territory in 1810. And then here is one of the manufacturers, again, some more cotton stuff, but they added some other things like woolen goods and things. So there was more pages. And then like wheat mills and everything else. And then here's a description of the manufacturing schedules for 1820 that were saved. There's 27 rows and not very many states, but they list the states, and part of Tennessee has been in it too. So it's interesting to see, even though we never looked at them or researched them before, that there are some earlier ones, but we just didn't know how to get to them. So this book here is in our collection. It's called Indexes to Manufacturers Census of 1820. This is of that record group that we just saw listed, number 59, microfilm roll 279. And then inside it, they have a table of contents that they show you things. This is about Pennsylvania. It gives you a description of what, you know, some basic information about it. The marshals that were involved, or assistant marshals, the Western District of Pennsylvania, who was in that part to gather things, the microfilm rolls, and then they also told you, they break it down in Western District and Eastern District, which counties they have information on. And then the next index in that book, in the part of Pennsylvania, is the index to the industries. And the numbers next to this is not page numbers, it is the document on the microfilm. So it's telling you that this is the information. And then there's an index to names. So I went through and I was curious to see if one of my ancestors could be in there. He's a possibility, Samuel Seeley, but I'm not sure. And his document is 448. Well, when I started searching the industry part, the documents were a lumber. And he also was in Venango County, which my ancestors were in. And his document regarding his business is underneath the lumber. So that gives me a little idea. I might want to start reading a little bit about lumbering in that area in Pennsylvania. I might want to double check the county to see if they mention businesses regarding lumbering or even other individuals. And so Family Search also had these indexes to let you know where the film is, which is the second list. The other one is a pamphlet explaining it, and plus the index to Pennsylvania group that came out of the book that we have. And then this is the microfilm of Vermont. We got on that film for 1820. And as you see, it's all handwritten form. They created it themselves. They didn't use the printout. Okay, and these are some of the issues for 1810 and 1820. They were asked to collect information on several different manufacturings. They had no printed schedule. They had no guidelines for collecting. They were just told what they needed to collect, but not how to do it. Paper sizes were in various styles. Maybe one guy had a short piece of paper, a big piece of paper. He might have 6 different sizes in his set that he turned in. And so it was hard and it was kind of useless, these results, and trying to figure out what they were doing. In 1820, again, there was no printed forms for it. They were, the ruling and the procedures were sent to the marshals, but the marshals may not have done it. They might have assigned somebody to it. The information that was released were based on incompleted forms. They, a lot of issues that were in there, and that's why they got rid of the 1830, which might have been some key pieces we might have needed for our ancestor. So like I said, yeah. So there's a little bit of history out on census.gov. They've got stuff all the way up through 2000. No individuals, but some basic information gathered with stats on the different areas in the US. So here's the 1840 section on page 2. There's other things out there too between this one, but these are the basic: mining, agriculture, commerce, manufacture, trade, navigation of the ocean, navigation of the lakes and rivers. And then the other one that's over here too, so. And then here's the 1840 Genesee County, New York. I was curious because I was curious on this gentleman. He was in his 80s and he was in a business, manufacturing. And when I checked the 1850, it stated he was a cooper, which could be verified in the history of Fairhaven, Vermont, where they mentioned that before 1830, he was a cooper, and it told me where the business was, what area in Fairhaven. I didn't quite get it. I don't have a map of it, but it gave me a description of where his business was at. And so this is a nice way of checking information from census year to census year to make sure there wasn't any changes, or if it continued, which means, okay, he was well enough and good enough to create some businesses that he didn't have to look for another job. Okay, so in Crawford County, Pennsylvania in 1840, the population that was collected was 365. 71 men were in the agricultural, 5 in manufacturing. That seems, you know, very small. So you wonder what happened with the rest. Were they employees? How many children were there? How many women were there? So that means you need to pull another statistic, but that's a very small percentage out of 365 in a county. You know, you kind of wonder. Then you start asking questions. And then here's in Boston, 6482, 4 for farming, 311 commerce, but then on the bottom of the form, it has 300 just below it. So that's what's in parentheses, is the second number. Manufacture and trade, 454 or 449. Navigation of the ocean, 14. Learned professional engineers, 189. Again, you're looking at the population. You kind of wonder what other businesses might have been missed or what wasn't listed. Maybe they had some extra business owners, but they didn't make the $500 limit to get put on here. So that's some other questions, you know. Maybe they're not in these census because they didn't profit with $500. And then here is the 1850 for Calamo in the county of Eaton County, Michigan. No relation. I was just grabbing information. I wanted to see what other areas were doing. And so this is E.D. Lacey. He had a sawmill. He invested $1,500. And then this is the materials of what he was gathering. The kind of power was machinery, structure of resources, water, and 1 saw. He had 1 employee, average monthly wages, $30. And then it gives you that he had the annual product cost for him was $1,500 is what he earned back. And then this is in Gratiot County, Michigan in 1850. Again, no relative to mine, even though I lived there. And basically, I don't know the spelling of the last name. I don't know if it's Hilliwen or Pilgrim or whatever it is. He had a grist mill, invested $6,000. He did grain and power source was water. He had 2 employees and the monthly wages averaged out to $40. And then his annual product. It said, you know, unknown. So he didn't give out how much he actually made. 1870, Marshall in Calhoun County. And this is talking about a business who was a cooper. And this gives you some basic information. His annual product was $45,000. And you think about that time frame, that's a lot of money. So that kind of gives you information of what you want to delve into, what, you know, if this was your ancestor, to find out whether or not, if he was successful enough, did they write up about him, what was going on. Then 1880, here is Schedule 3. And then it's like every business is on this. It's not separated enough for you to search. So you've really got to search the Schedule 3 plus the categorized one if you knew what business your ancestor was in. And so again, I mean, there's another one, you know, second view of it. And then this is a description of the categories. There's 12 of them. 2 of them were 1 full pages for each one, the number 1 and number 2. And then the other ones were 3 and 4. The top half was 1 and the bottom half is another. So here's the agricultural one, and it gives you, you can see some of this is the agricultural implements. So it's stuff that they would use for farming, paper mills. Okay, when I cross out the bottom part of this, I'm just looking at the boots and shoes at this part. And then you just look to see, there's just a few here in the area, which was part of, it looks like, I don't know what town, state that was. And then this is the leather goods that was also put out on this schedule. Lumber mills gives you some basic information, again, like the workers and the material, the resources, the wages. The brickyards and tile works. Flour and grist, the top half is this. And then this county, I don't know which one it was, had no cheese, butter, and condensed milk factories. But that's another area, if someone made cheese for a living or did milk and whatever and produced it. Then slaughtering and meat packing is number 9. And it gives you some company names. And then salt works. There's only one salt works from wherever this town is from. It's from in Michigan. So I think it's down in Huron County. I was trying to find some in Wayne County because I know they had salt mines, but I couldn't find where those were. And then coal mines. They only listed this as small. So the large coal miners had a separate census form, and I don't know where it was. They didn't really say, but they had a special report that they filed with the federal government, not like what these small coal mine companies had to report. And then quarries. And then remember, some of your ancestral females were going to be in there as dressmakers, maybe milliners, weavers, or even other occupations, like they might have owned a store because their husband had passed away, but they took over the business. They're going to be in there if they were a major part of the company. And for example, in 1870, according to the magazine that I had recently purchased and read the article, Catherine Foster from Sandusky, Erie County, Ohio, was listed in the 1870s, and her occupation was rag carpet weaving. So, I mean, you'd be surprised at what they might have done and you didn't know. because I really wasn't thinking of the women being listed in this business. Other ways to enhance your data once you get that information is to really dig into the town and or county histories. Look at the newspapers that were available at that time. Did they place ads? Were they looking for help? Were they trying to do a nice sales ad for you? Were there articles about the family or their individuals, either in the society section or just in general throughout the thing? City directories. Look for photos that might show you some stuff and information and might really gain things. Diaries are another one when people write about their experience. And the most current social media that people use a lot, Facebook groups. There are a lot of like the history of Michigan, maybe Washington history, Spokane County, Washington. You might find city ones like the Greater Lansing Historical, or even individuals who might do it like my hometown. It's like Elma will always be my hometown, which means there's a lot of hits. There's a lot of beautiful photos, sometimes articles. So you'd be surprised what kind of Facebook groups are out there, and they're reporting history that can really connect to your family. This one is the Historical Society of Greater Lansing. I recently came across this. Someone says, does anybody know where this is? And then she gets 6 responses, which really surprised me. Someone thought it was the Wilson Brothers clothing in St. John's. So they didn't know if it was in the Lansing area, because St. John's is Clinton County and 1/3 of Lansing is Clinton County. And then there's another one that says, they thought it was something else. And then someone mentioned the cobblestones. They really got into the picture and saw cobblestones in there. And some of them thought it was down on Washington Street near the old Diamond Rio area. So it was really interesting to see where some people were guessing where these histories are. So it makes you want to look in those books to see if some of these photos are in those towns or areas, to really dig into the history. I do see the word clothing on the awning there. So another one of the city directories was really nice. I, out of curiosity, was trying to research my husband's great-grandfather, and I heard rumors that he was hardly ever around in town, but for 6-7 years, I found him staying in the same place in Lansing, and he works for the Lansing Spokes and Wheel Company, and it told me where he lived. And when I did a general search on that company, I got this photo out of the Lansing library there, the capital area. We nicknamed it Cattle. And it was I found out who founded the company. It was established in the 1890s. It was well established, but he was working there before 1892. So it was there in the 1890s. And then it consisted of a sawmill, a drying shed, manufacturing and finishing areas for spokes and wheels and rams, and a rail siding. So it was interesting. And later on it became Auto Wheel, and we're kind of wondering if it was really later on known as Motor Wheel or another company there in the area. And out of the elderly men, there's at least 3 or 4 possibilities of the photos, basing on the age of when he died, that one of them is his great-grandfather. Do not know which yet. I would have to really blow it up and see if his grandfather resembles them, or if any of the family members have a resemblance to any of them. But it was interesting. I found a business photo, and so I can add it to the story that he worked for this company. He was a carpenter. Now I can see why his son was a carpenter. He got it from dad. He worked with dad. So that kind of helps to build the story on this. And then this is the basic information on this guy. He was born in Ohio, ended up in Indiana for a little while, went to Clinton County, got married, and then all of a sudden he's living in Lansing after his wife had died. So and this photo is after the census years, but it's also about a business, about New Way Motor Company in Lansing. And the guy with the question mark, if I blow it up enough, it looks like my brother-in-law, who also looked like his grandfather. So I'm wondering if that is Claude. So we have an idea, because on the back it says Claude on the back, but it doesn't say where or who these guys are. But that's the only one that resembles Claude the most. So, but I found out what the company was. I looked it up, got the information. So that gives me a little bit more history on my family as I'm building it forward and coming up to my husband's info. So basically, this is a fantastic way, is to double check all the census records, find out what occupation they are, check the city directories, and find out if they listed a company they worked for, or find photos that were in the family packets that nobody knows what they are, but on the back, there might be a little clue of what was going on.